Good afternoon. It's Thursday, September 1st. I'm Aryeh O'Sullivan, and this is IBA News broadcasting from Jerusalem. An IDF soldier was moderately wounded by gunfire while guarding 16 busloads of Jewish worshippers as they entered Nablus to pray at the Joseph's tomb overnight. The army said the worshippers' entry had been coordinated with the Palestinian authorities, but shortly after the buses entered the city, fierce clashes erupted with the Palestinians throwing stones and firebombs at troops and setting tires alight. A soldier who was deployed near the tomb was wounded. Prayers went on as planned, and the worshippers left without further incident. The army said it was investigating whether the soldier was hit by a Palestinian sniper or of friendly fire. This morning, doctors at the Beilinson Hospital in Petah Tikva said the soldier's condition had stabilized. Israel's approval of hundreds of housing units in Judea and Samaria has sparked a sharp rebuke from the U.S., with the White House calling the move a serious and growing threat to the viability of a two-state solution. The harsh words came after the civil administration's High Planning Committee announced Wednesday that it had approved the construction of 234 homes in Elkanah, which are designated as a nursing home, 31 homes in Beit Aryeh, which is also retroactively approving 178 housing units, and 28 homes in Kibbutz Zev, as well as retroactively approving 179 units in Ofarim, north of Ramallah. The move to expand West Bank settlements prompted a harsh response from the U.S. State Department.
Are particularly troubled by the policy of retroactively approving unauthorized settlement units and outposts that are themselves illegal under Israeli law. These policies have effectively given the Israeli government a green light for the pervasive advancement of settlement activity in a new and potentially unlimited way. This significant expansion of the settlement enterprise poses a very serious and growing threat to the viability of the two-state solution.
Defense Minister Avigdor Lieberman has approved the establishment of a children's hospital for Palestinians in Beit Sahur, east of Bethlehem. The move is part of his recently unveiled stick and carrot policy that focuses on boosting the economy in Palestinian areas not involved in activities against Israel and punishing those involved in terror. The hospital is expected to be funded by international organizations and will be built near Beit Sahur, but in Area C under Israel's full control. The civil administration said the construction plans still need approval and will have to go through the regular planning process. The school year kicked off on schedule today with some 2.2 million students from kindergarten to high school returning from summer vacation to begin their studies. Also attending the first day of classes were Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu and other officials. IBA political correspondent Kalev Ben David reports on some of the controversies surrounding the start of the academic year. Kalev?
Thanks, Aryeh. Prime Minister Netanyahu and Education Minister Naftali Bennett chose to kick off the school year with a visit to the Tamra Ha'emek Elementary School in the Gilboa region. The political significance of choosing an Israeli Arab school for his visit was highlighted by Netanyahu, who told students there, "I want you to learn to write, learn to read, learn Hebrew, Arabic, and English. I want you to learn mathematics. I want you to learn science. I want you to learn history, the history of the Jewish people, the history of your own community. I want you to learn the truth, and the truth says we were destined to live together." But elsewhere, at Tel Aviv's Shevach Mofet School, the message of coexistence was not quite as welcome. Protesters blocked the entrance of the school this morning, as they did last night, over plans by the Tel Aviv municipality to have the school primarily serve children of foreign migrants living in its South Tel Aviv neighborhood. Netanyahu also denounced the move, echoing criticism from Defense Minister Avigdor Lieberman over plans to shift the school's focus from serving the children of Russian-speaking immigrants to those of the illegal African migrants whom the Prime Minister referred to as infiltrators. Tel Aviv Mayor Ron Chodai shot back at Netanyahu that instead of helping to seriously deal with the issue of migrants, a problem his government helped create, the Prime Minister prefers to make comments as if he was making talkback responses on the internet. Culture Minister Miri Regev also attacked Holdai, accusing him of abandoning the residents of South Tel Aviv concerned about African migrants, while Education Minister Bennett supported Tel Aviv's mayor, saying he was trying his best to deal with a complicated situation. The Tel Aviv municipality now says it will try to find an alternative to Shevach Mofet for migrant children, but added in a final dig at Netanyahu and other critics of Holdai that the solution will not come from Facebook postings. Aryeh?
Kalev, why all this political fuss over one school in Tel Aviv? I mean, what should be a small local issue, why is it a national controversy?
All right, because Shevach Mofet has become a symbol or the latest flashpoint in the larger controversy over what or how to handle Israel's illegal migrant worker population, primarily coming to us from Africa. And some of the politicians in the government, like Culture Minister Miri Regev, have made this a very populist issue and have raising it. And I think Prime Minister Netanyahu in this case was taken by surprise by Defense Minister Lieberman, who first raised it at the cabinet meeting the other day, because most of the current students are Russian immigrant, the children of Russian-speaking immigrants. The Prime Minister, of course, believes that's an important constituency for his own Likud party, and he didn't want to be outdone on this issue by Defense Minister Lieberman. But unfortunately, there is a real issue here, is that we have these migrant workers, they have children, who, while they have to be educated, and what can be done with them.
Well, Kalev, thanks a lot.
Pleasure.
And the new pathological report could have a dramatic impact on manslaughter charges against Sergeant Elor Azaria, the IDF soldier who shot a neutralized terrorist in Hebron last March. According to Channel 1 News, the defense is slated to submit to the Jaffa Military Court next week a report prepared by Professor Yehuda Hiss, the former head of the Abu Kabir Forensic Institute, in which he claims the Palestinian terrorist had died from previous gunshot wounds and not by the bullet fired into his head by Azaria. If accepted, this evidence could lead to the soldier's acquittal. During testimony today, a paramedic for Magen David Adom said that when he arrived at the scene, there was chaos. He said that there was yelling and that the terrorists had not been neutralized and could maybe be booby-trapped, and that he was afraid of being blown up. In the studio is Amotz Asael, a senior columnist for the Jerusalem Post, to wrap up the week's events. Amotz, thanks for joining us.
Hi.
So this week, the government session, Finance Minister Moshe Kachlon asked the government for more money for education. And the Prime Minister had an interesting response. He said that when Yitzhak Rabin gave more money for education, performance dropped. And when the Soviet Union gave more money for education, it fell. So is Israel investing enough in education?
Well, at 52 billion shekels, which is by far the second largest budget here historically, and at close to 5% of GDP, the problem is not Israeli investment in education's size, but its management. And in this regard, I can understand what Netanyahu was referring to. He was saying, let's not look at the size of our spending on education, but at the way we manage it. And more specifically, everyone understands that there was a good plan to reinvent the management of Israeli education spending last decade by empowering school principals to hire and fire teachers and to salary them on their own volition, with their own budget, and through an overseeing board that will represent the community, particularly the parents. This was derailed back then by the unions, and this remains the solution, and the solution that all governments are too afraid to implement.
Talk about derailing. This week we saw the inauguration of the legendary Valley train that goes from Haifa to Beit Sha'an and maybe on to Jordan in a few years. How significant is this?
This is very significant. First of all, locally, for the residents of Beit She'an, which is a very veteran and well-known but off the beaten path Israeli development town, they will now become effectively a suburb of Haifa. You'll be able, as of several weeks from now, to live in Beit She'an and to work in Haifa through a very comfortable and very cheap 50-minute commute, the way it's done throughout the Western world. This is locally. Then internationally, this railway from Haifa will lead merchandise directly into Jordan and through it to the Arab world, as is already happening now without rail transport with Turkish goods that make their way to Haifa and through trucks into the Arab world via Jordan. This will now happen through the railway. That too is very good. And most importantly, this is but a detail in a broad transport revolution whose crowning achievement will be next year's planned inauguration of the Jerusalem-Tel Aviv fast train, and several years after that, Tel Aviv's metro.
Interesting. Another interesting report this week, today, in Haaretz, says that there's been a dramatic rise in the number of Jewish couples who are choosing not to get married and to live together. In fact, it said 29% more than in 2014. And also it says that there's been a dramatic reduction in the number of people getting married, 6.5% reduction in people going to get married. Is this a sort of revolution against Israel's stringent marriage laws?
No, well, this is a creeping voting by the feet. against the rabbinate, which is often out of step with the Israeli mainstream, which is not hostile towards tradition, but does not like to be imposed upon in any respect, least of all in terms of its faith. And if the rabbinate does not understand that the power that the secular mainstream has given it to administer Israeli matrimony, then it will find the public increasingly turning its back on their mechanisms. I think they are facing a public that increasingly is demanding, whether passively or actively, change, and this change will come.
This week we also saw the passing of Benjamin Ben Eliezer, who was a crucial defense minister during the time of the Second Intifada, who was an infrastructure minister, and later went on to become the leader of the Labour Party, but also got involved in controversies and corruption scandals, like Ehud Olmert, and maybe like the mayor of Jerusalem, Lupliansky. Are we seeing a changing of an era?
Well, I think that Fuad Ben Eliezer's biography is very tragic. He left an imprint, a positive imprint, on Israeli history. First of all, he was Rabin's doer in terms of the big infrastructure revolution that Rabin launched, that is culminating, for instance, now the transport revolution that we discussed. He was the man who executed it as the Minister of Housing and Construction. He later, as defense minister with Ariel Sharon, led the successful war on terror last decade, and he was the pivot man in the decision to build the anti-terror fence. Sharon was wavering and Peres was opposed. Ben Eliezer represented the Israeli majority that saw in that a pragmatic solution. Then, when Labor became ideologically defeated as far as its electoral results were concerned, but still served in governments, that's when people within Labor began joining the zeitgeist of corruption, and sadly, Ben Eliezer allegedly was part of that.
Well, Motz, thanks for your insight.
Thank you, Arya.
Allegations of fraud at Jerusalem's Hadassah Hospital. The police fraud squad has arrested 2 residents in their 20s from Beitar Illit in the capital who are suspected of receiving cash envelopes containing thousands of shekels from patients in exchange for medical services, including advancing their appointments to receive private medical care at Hadassah Ein Kerem Hospital. Police said that the 2 are suspected of fraudulent behavior and corruption, adding that one of the suspects said he received instructions from a well-known rabbi. 2 professors and a doctor from the hospital were also questioned under caution by police, but denied any knowledge of the affair, saying they advanced patients' appointments according to urgency. Police have asked members of the public who have been requested to pay to have their medical appointments move forward to notify them. David Govrin, Israel's new ambassador to Egypt, presented his credentials to the Egyptian President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi at his Cairo palace. His appointment comes at a time of warming relations between Cairo and Jerusalem, and just weeks after an Israeli delegation reported he met with the Egyptian president to discuss reviving the Israeli-Palestinian peace process. Govrin was confirmed as ambassador on April 3rd and arrived in Egypt in July. Turning to the presidential elections, and Republican candidate Donald Trump met yesterday with Mexican President Enrique Pena Nieto in Mexico City in an effort to boost a campaign beset by controversy. IBA's Caleb Ben David filed this report.
Republican presidential candidate Donald Trump flew down to Mexico City Wednesday to meet with Mexican President Enrique Pena Nieto in a bid to woo Hispanic Americans while holding on to support from voters who appreciate his hardline stance on immigration. Nieto's decision to meet Trump, who has pledged to build a wall along the U.S.-Mexico border that Mexico will have to pay for and to deport all unauthorized Mexican immigrants, spurred protests in Mexico City.
It's more important this year than ever before that, we stop this candidate from becoming president. He can do a lot of damage in our country and in this one, and it's important to me that we vote someone else into office besides Donald Trump.
President Nieto defended his decision to meet Trump, saying it was important for Mexico's relationship with the U.S.
We did discuss the wall. We didn't discuss payment of the wall. That'll be for a later date. This was a very preliminary meeting. I think it was an excellent meeting. And I think we're very well on our way. A lot of the things I said are very strong, but we have to be strong. We have to say what's happening. There is crime, as you know. There's a lot of crime and there's a lot of problems.
Any hope that Trump's meeting with Nieto would soften his hardline views on Mexican immigrants were dashed when he later spoke to a crowd in Phoenix, Arizona.
I am going to create a new special deportation task force focused on identifying and quickly removing the most dangerous criminal illegal immigrants in America who have evaded justice, just like Hillary Clinton has evaded justice, okay? We are going to suspend the issuance of visas to any place where adequate screening cannot occur.
The coming days will tell if Trump's Mexico visit helped him close the gap with Democratic candidate Hillary Clinton, or if his trip south of the border was another misstep in his bumpy quest for the White House. This is Kalev Ben-David for IBA News.
One of Israel's wealthiest businessmen, Moshe Muzi Wertheim, passed away last night at the age of 86. Wertheim was the owner of Coca-Cola Israel, officially known as the Central Bottling Corporation, as well as controlling shareholder at the Mizrahi Tfachot Bank, the Keshet Media Group, and several other leading Israeli companies. He also served as the president of the Israel-America Chambers of Commerce. Born in Jerusalem, Wertheim studied in the yeshiva and after serving in the army, earned a law degree at Hebrew University and was later recruited to the Mossad, where he served in Switzerland and Italy before turning to business. France's hardline policy of banning Muslim women from wearing burkinis, the full-body swimsuit, at its beaches was greeted in Israel with surprise, a country where Jews and Muslims may not see eye to eye but enjoy freedom to wear what they want. While Israelis sympathize with the security issue facing France, the current French move was perceived by local beachgoers as a bit over the top.
I think in France it's a little bit, it's looked like a big problem right now. So they have to deal with the real thing, not with the burkini and all these things in the beach. So women can wear anything they want. And you don't have to feel not comfortable if they're wearing something they believe that they should wear.
I think it's very funny that people who think they are so liberal and open can't stand other religions and feelings of other people.
Remember the popular computer game Tetris from the 1980s? Well, here's your chance to play it again. And the Tel Aviv municipality has installed the game on the exterior walls of City Hall. 2 giant joysticks have been placed in Rabin Square, and members of the public are invited to play for the rest of this week and every Thursday night thereafter. The building has been lit up with about 500 different colored Tetris cells and will also offer the games of Pong and Snake. The endeavor is part of the DID Tel Aviv Innovation Festival. In Jerusalem, the annual beer festival resumes tonight after thousands of visitors from around the country descended on the capital for the first night last night. The Jerusalem Festival has been receiving rave reviews and provides the perfect summer opportunity for an escape to the cool, pleasant evening weather. Concerts, food, and a myriad of beer stands have transformed Independence Park into a colorful and lively arena where party atmosphere abounds. From premium beer makers to boutique breweries, brewski lovers will find 120 local and imported beers to choose from. There will be discount tickets for soldiers and students and Jerusalem residents. Looks like fun. Stock talk now, and trading was mixed on the Tel Aviv Stock Exchange today, while the shekel also put in a mixed performance against major foreign currencies. Here are the late afternoon numbers. Taking a look at the weather, and the forecast calls for this weekend to be partly cloudy with pleasant temperatures. Here are the expected highs and lows at home and abroad for the next 24 hours. That's our broadcast for today. We'll be back again on Sunday with the latest breaking news from Israel. Until then, on behalf of the IBA team, I'm Ariel Sullivan wishing you a good evening and shalom from Jerusalem.